Before I found my purpose, before the platform, before the nonprofit, before I became a coach or I had a mic in front of me, there was pain. There were questions. There were nights I didn't think I would make it out. This is the part of the story that you don't always see, and that's why we're here. Welcome to the very first episode of the Beneath the Hype podcast. I've been waiting a long time to do this, and I'm just now getting the courage to start. I'm your host, Coach Drew, and this ain't about being flashy or being perfect. It's about the process and about what's real. Today's episode is titled From Struggles to Purpose, because that's the life that I've lived. I've been locked up, I've been lost, I've battled trauma, broken relationships, identity confusion, and so much more. But I'm still here, and I've been redeemed, I've been restored, and now I live with purpose, not because I'm perfect, but because I've been through the process. So if you're listening and you're wondering if your struggle disqualifies you, I'm here to tell you that it doesn't. God can use all of it. Let's go deeper than the highlight reel, and let's talk about what it really takes to grow, to heal, and to walk in your calling.
Let's start by getting to know who Coach Drew is and tell me about the different titles that you have.
So first and foremost, I'm a son of God. That's the most important thing. For a long time, I've struggled with identity, and that's one of the reasons why we're here. Second of all, I'm a coach. I'm a mentor to the youth in our community. I'm a counselor. Both of those things have actually just recently came to fruition. Our Hype has partnered with It's Holistic Therapy here in Jacksonville. They're a mental health organization, and I have come on board as a mentor and counselor. So that's going to be another avenue that I can use to help our youth in the community. My job is a car salesman at Subaru of Jacksonville. So that's how I make my money right now. But yeah, that's who I am.
Perfect. So tell me about your upbringing. How was your upbringing?
As a child, there were good times and there were bad times, as there are, I'm sure, in everyone's life. But we started out growing up in the church. We actually went to church here in First Coast Baptist off of Blanding Boulevard. I was saved when I was 8 years old, but I also faced some trauma at an early age. When I was 8 as well, my mother was diagnosed with 6 months to live. It ended up being a false diagnosis, and she's still living today, thank God. I'm sure, that probably ticks you off being in your field. We'll talk about that later. But I also was bit by a pit bull when I was 9 years old. Those were two of my first traumatic experiences as a very young child. It's funny that I actually had a few pit bulls growing up after the fact. So you think it would deter me from owning those dogs, but it's all in how you raise them. And I was able to overcome that trauma at a young age. So I was starting to build some resiliency already, and we'll lead into that later. But like I said, we grew up in the church, and my father was actually a youth pastor at one point, and my mother was in the choir, and my sister and I would always be in the Christmas plays at church, and very active in church growing up. And then we moved to McLennan. When I was in 5th grade, we moved to Baker County, and that's kind of when things all went downhill. My father started drinking and self-medicating from an injury that he had earlier in his life, and that was affecting him. By the age of 14, I was still in that alcohol and those pain pills, and my friends and I were using them for fun, and that led into other things. So at a young age, I was exposed to certain things, not only from my father, but from my sister and her older friends as well. I had a lot of older influences around me, and most of the time those influences were negative. Once we left Jacksonville, we moved about 14 times from the time we left Jacksonville to the time I graduated high school. So a very unstable environment, didn't have much money. So, hanging out with those older people and experiencing things that I shouldn't be experiencing, I figured out ways to make money of my own. Some positive, we did do some things to earn, doing chores and things like that, just like kids would. But for the most part, it was negative.
But I'm sure you didn't consider it negative at the time. As you're doing it as a youth, you're not thinking about consequences and repercussions for your actions, right?
No.
You're thinking about either
Can we
socially,
get this?
Absolutely, or everyone's doing this, so it can't be wrong, right? Or in the moment type of mentality, as a lot of kids do, not thinking about the next 5 hours, 6 hours, or what are the repercussions or consequences if this happens or that happens? Is that,
Right.
Would you say that exactly? Okay.
That is definitely a part of it. Some of it was that we didn't care. I had been working for my father since I was 11 years old. So I already had some resentment towards him. And I was angry for him making me work while my friends were going to 2-a-day practices for football and going to basketball camps. You know, we didn't have money to send me to basketball camps. We didn't have money for me to go places. We couldn't go on vacation. We couldn't do things that a regular kid could do, you know? So I already had resentment and anger in my heart towards him for that.
Yeah, but I'm saying as far I understand completely your feelings toward your dad
Yeah.
because of, kind of the path that he's taken you down, right? But were you guys kind of without support from other family members? Was it just your immediate family? Was it other or support socially with like, aunties, uncles, grandparents? Like, how was that? And then were you involved in any? I know they didn't have the finances, right, for these types of things, but what about community resources? Was that nothing thought of, or were parents too busy and you were just kind of following their path and what they kind of, wanted for you?
Right. So in Becker County, there's a lot of cliques and it's a good old boy system. So us moving in, we were considered kind of like outcasts or not the in crowd. And my father was also kind of isolated. He didn't really go and do things very much at all. The only thing that I really remember him doing is going to my football games. We did have some people from our church and a few close friends. So when we were going through it, we were going through a foreclosure on one of the houses that we lived in. I moved in with Coach Ron. So when we were going through the foreclosure on our house, my parents had moved back to Jacksonville with my grandmother for a while, and I didn't want to go, so I moved in with them. And he was a coach on my football team. So we did have some community support, but my father really isolated us. He stopped going to church. Like I said, he was drinking a lot. He eventually stopped going to work. He would just sit in his recliner all day. So he was physically there, but he wasn't really mentally there, and he wasn't really spiritually there anymore. He stopped taking us to church, and he stopped leading our family in devotions. We stopped eating together as a family, pretty much stopped doing everything together as a family. So I think that was really what it was. He didn't want help from anybody. He kind of just gave up, I feel like. So the family dynamic was tough. That really was tough. He was going through a lot of things. Now that I'm older, I'm almost 40 years old now. As a 15, 16-year-old kid, I was really pissed off at him because I didn't really know what he was going through as a man.
Correct.
So his life didn't pan out how he imagined it. So he was
Right.
pissed off too. He was
Mm-hmm.
going through his own mental warfare. He was going through his own craziness, whatever was going through his head, and he was trying to cope with it the best way he knew how. And it was not in a
Helping.
good way.
And he wasn't obviously considering how it's possibly affecting you or his other children, right?
Right.
So in hindsight, like you said, in hindsight or retrospectively looking, you weren't really considering him when you were doing the things that you were doing, just like he wasn't considering, and that's very, very common. When you're trying to, we always say survive, right? The self-preservation is the first law of nature. So sometimes you're just trying to make it day to day.
That
And
fight
so
or
when you're
flight.
you
Yeah.
got it. So about the childhood trauma, some of the challenges you had growing up and how that impacted you overall and how you feel like that contributed to who you are today.
By the time I was 16, I was still straddling the fence, hanging out with the wrong crowd. But I ended up breaking into a store at the end of my freshman year, going into my sophomore year. This store was owned by the father of my high school quarterback and the pastor of the church that I was going to at the time. So this decision, in my mind, changed the trajectory of my entire life and was the reason behind all the bad things that happened to me for years to come. I had guilt and shame and regret inside of me for so long, and it's still something that I think about almost every single day of my life, but I use it in a different manner now. For a long time, I couldn't really look Bear in his face. That was my high school quarterback's name. I couldn't really look him in his face. He's forgiven me. The pastor of the church, his dad, forgave me following Sunday. My dad made me go to church and talk to him and face him as soon as I got caught. That's one of the morals of the story is don't do it because you're going to get caught.
That's right.
But ultimately, that decision is what spurred a whole lot of decisions, for years to come, like I said. And I would blame that for everything that didn't go right in my life, for a very long time. So that was like I guess like the tip of the iceberg for my high school experiences.
Oh, well, and you know what? You almost 40 years old. So you learned pretty young at a young age because there's still so many people that have experienced trauma, whether in their teens, 20s, 30s, but it's more habitual, right?
Right.
And so you give yourself grace and you always give thanks, but you utilized it like you said, you acknowledge, and you mentioned that Bear forgave you and the pastor forgave you. When did you forgive yourself?
Man, I guess a big turning point was kind of when I figured out what I wanted to do with all of it. When I started unpacking it and when I made a decision to kind of stop living the way that I was living. So probably about 2017. It's 2025 now. So that's been 8 years. I'm 37. So dang, 20. When I really started getting over that, I actually reached out to Bear through Facebook and asked him and tell him I was really sorry. It was years. I was probably about 25. And then I was still lost though. For a long time, I was still lost. So I don't know if I really did forgive myself, honestly. So to pinpoint a time, I probably couldn't. I just know I've been working through it for a very long time. But I started We Are Hype in 2017. So that's when I started unpacking everything. And that's when I made a decision to start using my story to help others. So I guess it was around that time.
Yeah. So we talked briefly, you were involved in sports, basketball, football. When did you feel sports was just more than a game?
I mean, my whole life, honestly, it's always been very special to me. I've always been good at sports, and without it, I don't know where I'd be. I probably would definitely be either not here or I would have been in jail for sure. So it's definitely needed in our world. I've seen how basketball can change people, can bring people together, can spark unity amongst people where there was none. I've been able to travel out of the country to places like Costa Rica and see people in real poverty to give me real perspective on not having money. I've been able to meet so many awesome people, and I have so many mentors and connections now from the game of basketball. It's ridiculous. And through my walk with basketball, I've learned that, I don't know if you know this, but the inventor of basketball, James Naismith, created it to create disciples of men. It's to create a ministry. It's not just a sport. Basketball is something special. That's the whole idea behind basketball, is to create disciples. Sports in general is something special. And without it, like I said, I don't know where I'd be, but it's always been special to me. I've always known it was something greater than just a game.
Right. Well, it sounds like that the Spirit was convicting you. You felt something
All the time.
pulling at you whenever you're making decision. Should I do this or go pick up that ball? Or should I, run to that field? And I think it sounds to me like with this, the nonprofit that you have and your mission and with the emphasis and partnership with the mental health counseling, this is a focus for the youth and for the community. And I think that is definitely needed. Empowering them and pouring into them and having those different outlets and support
100%.
can only foster, and help as far as productivity. So 100% agree.
And
so
I want to say one more thing to that. What's funny about basketball and sports? That ball is always there for you, just like Jesus.
Absolutely.
So it definitely correlates.
It does.
Those sports are always there for you, no matter how old you are. You can always pick up a ball and go to a park and play a sport. That in itself is therapy and mental health counseling.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
All right, go ahead.
Now, I don't know. I could pick up a ball and use that as as objectivity. When it comes to me and playing basketball, no. Having
Okay,
the rock.
athletes.
They call it the rock, right? So let's pivot to faith and your relationship and building that bond. I know you mentioned early childhood. You were in the church. You kind of strayed away whenever your parents weren't fully involved as an early teen. When did you find out, or when did you start seeking God again for yourself, I'll say, and what motivated you And also, when did you feel that it's more a relationship, not just a religion?
I always had a relationship with God. Like I said, I was saved at a very young age. I was saved at 8. I asked Jesus to come into my heart. I believed that he died on the cross for my sins. And I believe if I died right now, I'd go to heaven. I did back then, I do now, and I will forever and ever. Okay? Despite what I've done in my life, despite what I do, I'm not perfect. No one's perfect. We're all going to sin. And we've all fallen short of the glory of God, right? So let's just get at that. Let's just get that out there.
100%.
But the entire time that I was in the world, living the way that I was, selling things I shouldn't be selling, chasing women and money and partying, I always had a conviction. Like I knew I shouldn't have been doing it, but I was angry. Like I said, I had so much resentment in my heart. I just wanted to do what I wanted to do. I didn't have things when I grew up. So once I was able to go and get them the way that I learned how, I just did what I wanted to do with no regard for anybody. I did things very carelessly for a long time. I felt like I was invincible for a long time because I would do things and get away with them, but you can only do that for so long. You can only straddle the fence for so long, like I did in high school, until you get caught. What you do in the dark will come to light, right? It's
Amen.
cliche, but it's true.
Amen.
It's true. It's going to happen.
Amen.
It's going to happen
Absolutely.
eventually, y'all.
It
So
will.
I'm telling you, just come clean and just do your best to do what's right. I don't know. It's hard, but we have to because it's just going to happen. So yeah, like I said, I've always had Jesus. Always, my mother has been such a rock for me. Every time we talk, she does not get off the phone without telling me to smile and show him Jesus, baby. Every single time. I've always read my Bible. I've always prayed. Even when I was in the world and living the way that I shouldn't have been, I would still go to church. Like, I still love Jesus. I just was doing stupid stuff. I was being young and dumb and living recklessly. And it took a while for me to get away from it and just realize that it wasn't worth it. Chasing fast money and chasing women and things like that, it all came to a very abrupt ending. And I just was tired. I just couldn't do it anymore. I got tired of trying to control the narrative. And once I stopped, partying the way that I did and doing certain things, like I still suffered from the identity stuff, right? So it's not just one thing, it's an accumulation of things. And then still today, like I work myself to death. So I may not be doing those things, but I still have to work on something all the time. It's not something that just clicks one day and you get it figured out. It's a process of personal development for your entire life. There's never an ending to learning, right?
And growth.
Exactly. We can always
Absolutely.
get better, and that's the goal.
Anytime you water something, it's going to, well, you would think anytime
Not
you
in
water
Florida.
something, you're
Not in
right.
Florida.
But
And
I
we're
will
getting too much
say,
water right now.
right. I will say though, it was very insightful to what you said, and I hear that a lot. And one thing for me, because coming from a very similar place, a lot of the statements that you made was okay. I can tell you, just listen to that. It was just like, oh my goodness, when you fully allow God and you say, listen, I don't want to be in control. I don't want to do nothing. You do it for me. You show me what to do. I'm following your footsteps. It becomes so much lighter,
Man,
and the battle's not yours.
that's true.
And when
It's
you
not.
dismiss that burden and dismiss everything that's not of him and that he does not have set apart for you, guess what? It's so much lighter. You
It
don't
is.
have a worry in the world. And that's the best feeling in the world, not having to have a worry in the world.
Yep.
Just really quick, whenever you mentioned, you grew up poor and you went to Costa Rica and you seen what poor was, and it's like, and from the other aspect, because we'll tell my story at a different time, okay? Because I was the 18, 19-year-old with a house bought for her, okay? But I still was in the world. So money wasn't an issue, okay? But I still had some shortcomings but in a different way. But I took on the burden. It wasn't my burden to bear, So acknowledging that alone, and if that's one thing that we could instill in the kids, in any person with an ear to listen,
Yeah.
you give it to the one it belongs to, the one who created it, everything,
For sure.
you can't go wrong. But we make a mess of things, when we try to take on things, or we're looking at what should be, when who are we to say what it should be?
Right.
He is the one who's in control. You don't want to be in control. And if if the youth and even the elders, who haven't figured it out yet, can understand that the positive qualities, characteristics, and aspects to this life, love, forgiveness, optimism, everything that's positive, the things of God will never fail and will never have us, feeling down, poor. We will always be rich, whether we
Right.
got $5 or 5 million. Okay. As long as you have him, you don't have a worry in the world. And if that's what we can instill in the youth and the people who have not figured it out yet, hey, one person, all it takes is one person. So I digress now, but I'm gonna let you. I just had to say that because
No,
you
that's
mentioned
great.
the.
I,
So yep,
I totally agree,
absolutely.
100%. It definitely lightens the load when you just give up control and or trying
Mhm.
to control everything and trying to figure out all the answers because we're not going to have them. We're never going
And
to
you're not
figure it.
supposed to. We're not supposed to.
Exactly, we're
We're
not.
not.
We're never going to figure it all out.
Mm-mm.
Stop trying.
Yeah. Wow. So tell me about a moment that you almost gave up and God stepped in. I
Oh
mean, I know
man,
you
how
talked.
many?
Yeah, tell me.
Last week? Yeah, so nah, I'm just kidding. But last week was rough, but I'll never give up. A moment when I almost give up. So definitely in high school, when I made that decision to break into that store a couple times, I want to just say the heck with it all and hide in my room and quit, but my mom wouldn't let me. She made me go to summer school and I had to go to the alternative school and just face everything, so couldn't give up then. And then, man, like just throughout adulthood, like I've had so many different jobs and I feel like I've lived so many different lives. Roller coaster, roller coaster. So probably every time I was down here, I wanted to give up. And then I see now that I didn't have to feel like that. But in the moment, it all feels like the world is going to just end. So looking back, I see every stepping stone now where God has just provided each step of the way. It's very eye-opening, very crazy. Even now, last month, it was a slow month at the dealership. And this month is starting out to be slow too. So there's a little bit of worry there. But at the same time, I just have to give it to God because every single month he provides, no matter what's happening, he always takes care of me. So I just have to lean into him, get into the word, and just let it go,
Faith. That's right.
Just need a
He
mustard
can
seed.
do more. That's it. That's all it takes. So tell me, what is some words of advice that you would have for the young Drew or for the young boy or girl who's in one of those peaks or valleys,
Man, I could say a whole book full of advice to my 17-year-old self. So vulnerable, so eager to just be an adult and be on my own. I would tell him to take his time and be patient and to be more cautious of those questionable people, questionable places, and questionable things. And think about the decisions that you're going to make before you make them, because I was very, very impulsive. I just wanted to go and get what I wanted. I didn't want to take no for an answer, so I figured out ways to get it. So I would say be a kid. Stop trying to grow up so fast and don't listen to this world and the media and the music. Feed your mind with more positive things and listen to your mom
right,
and stay in
right.
church and
Hmm.
keep good people around you. Listen to your coaches. Cling to the people who love you and care about you.
Right. And I think that's one good. I mean, not all the advice that we as adults now obviously give to kids, even as young kids, we didn't hear it because we felt it was coming from a place of it was punitive, right? Or they would say, don't do this or you can't do this, but the why was never or sometimes not explained.
A lot of
It
the
was more,
whys were never explained. Yeah. In our generation, when we asked, we were told not to ask. Just do as
there
I
you go.
say, not as I do.
Absolutely. And don't ask. That's right. It's because I said so, right?
It's because I
Because I
said
said
so.
so. That's right. Yep. So I think having that dialogue and encouraging that communication, because
And allowing the question why, as
exactly. And
long as
yep,
it's not disrespectful.
yep, yep, 100% agree. 100% agree. So we talked about hype, helping young people everywhere. I love that. In a nutshell, you've kind of hinted on a lot of the questions that I have for you. Why mentorship is so important, Well, I know why it is for you. Tell me about this generation specifically, what you've observed and why you feel that this is so imperative for this generation.
Man, there's a lot of instant gratification going on these days. Even when we were younger too, but with the way that social media is set up and AI and all the technology we have, they're just it's so easy to get information, whatever it is, drugs, whatever the case is, things are just much easier to access these days. So this generation of kids is in turmoil from what I see. Even the kids that are in good homes and doing positive extracurricular activities and things like the music that they're listening to, the things that they're doing on TikTok and social media and the people that they're hanging with. Yeah, it's like it's bad. You know, these kids definitely need it. And then I think the parents need it too, because a lot of the parents are still lost. A lot of the parents from our generation didn't have the best upbringing either. So they're still trying to figure it out, just like we are. So it's needed across all levels. Disrespect is worse. I see it as a coach. I see it as an educator. I see it at the car dealership. The way kids talk to their parents is horrible. There's no more yes ma'am and no ma'am. There's no more respect for elders. I see kids littering all over the place, which really, really irks my nerves, like really, really bad. They don't take care of their things. The list can go on and on. They don't know how to write a resume. They don't know how to write an email. They don't know how to text message properly. They don't know how to talk on the phone. Like I could just go on and on and on and on. So our hype is needed. However many organizations we can get is needed. A Boys and Girls Club is needed. I can, name so many that are needed
Right.
for this generation. There's no questions asked. Mentorship is a must have for this generation.
I 100% agree. And I think another thing in our generation, we were outside. I remember playing kickball and going to the park. Whereas now the kids are in the house in the computer room because we didn't have I mean, I remember when the pink Razor came out. I think that was the first one. The big Nokia was the first one, but we didn't have the electronics that they have. And so, we had a television. We were outside.
Yeah.
They have no motivation to leave their room or their electronics. And so it's kind of hard to get them, not let alone physical activity, because maybe they'll go to a basketball game or a football game, but outside of that, they're in their room with their electronics. So, another thing is reaching the kids, finding ways to reach them, and it's going to have to be through electronics and social media. And, it's going to be a stomping ground, I know, because that's where
Look,
it's changed. It's different,
so that's one
Yeah.
thing that I'm trying to get hip to, being 37, and I'm trying to I've been on social media for a while, right? But I'm really starting to try and get into it more now so I can really connect with them more.
So we talked about the tough lessons that you had to learn and how you had to learn it. Let's talk about what scares you now. Is there anything that scares you now?
It's kind of a two-edged sword. I have a fear of failure and I have a fear of success. I'm scared that if I become truly successful, that I'm not going to handle it properly. But I'm also scared that I'm not going to make it, right? So I hate that. But that's also me just being human and insecure. I think it also has to do with a lot with imposter syndrome and me still kind of having shame and guilt of my past, right? So I just have to keep working through it. I just have to do it. Even if it's as simple as making a post on social media. Sometimes we have hesitations to do that. What are people going to think, right? What if they laugh at me? Who cares? Just do it.
Hello. That's right. Hello.
So that's kind of where I'm at right now, is like, I don't care. I've been wanting to do this podcast for a while now. I've had a lot to say, and I want to help other people tell their stories and tell their struggles and tell their successes. And I've been procrastinating on a lot of things, but I can't anymore. God is telling me to go and do and do and do and do. The time is now. Like, I don't have time to wait anymore, So that's where I am. I don't care. I'm just going to go and do it. Go and do.
That's right. And you know what? I'm going to tell you. So I'm going to tell you how my brain registered that, because I heard a lot of I again, and it's something with me and the word I, and it just triggers. So what I understood you stated was God has put it on your spirit. He has an abundance for you, right? It's waiting for you as long as you are obedient and you follow his lead and he has given you direction and you are letting go and letting God and following his lead. And if that's by getting up and moving and no longer procrastinating and making the podcast and doing the things that he has put in your spirit and your heart to do, you're being obedient. So you're listening. You're now listening and you're now understanding that you can't do it alone. And so that is what I understood from what you stated with those I statements. And that is what I feel hype will be pouring into the kids. And like I said, no, full disclaimer, old and young alike, it's, him. Everything goes to him. You give everything to him. All the praises, all the things, the shortcomings, because you're made in his image. You're his child, right?
Yeah.
So when you look at it and you change your perspective 100%, guess what? Success, failure, whatever, it's him. It's whatever he wants it to be that day, right?
Man, it's
So
crazy.
it's not I. And that's what we put in those kids. Like I said, the burden's not there and it's not yours and it's not mine and it's not ours, right?
Right.
It's his. It's whatever he wants it to be,
Right.
And so, yeah, no more. I mean, I always say, it ain't me. They'll say, they'll praise. Oh, I thank you so much. And it's like, listen, I'm here. It's him. Thank him,
Yeah, I'm a
like,
walking
because I
vessel.
couldn't do it without him,
I
without
can't.
his strength, without his
No, you're
motivation,
exactly
without
right.
yes.
Yeah,
So
no.
he's the force behind us, So
It
there's
all comes back to him. Like, he put this in my spirit, right?
absolutely.
He put this conviction on me and this burning desire in me to do this. And
Absolutely.
I physically, even when I tried to stop, I just couldn't.
Mhm.
That's something I think about every single day. So there's no other rhyme or reason to that except it is him
That's it.
calling me to do this.
That's
I
right.
mean, I don't know. I don't have any other explanation.
Hey, it's all growth. You have it. You have the foundation and the fundamental aspects. And anything that's built, what's a house built on? What is anything built on? A foundation.
Foundation.
As long as he is at that foundation, the core, you can't go wrong, And so love it, love it, love it. All right. Let's talk relationships. How have past relationships shaped your views on love, leadership, and manhood?
Man, this last one, I lost my manhood for a while, but I love love. I still want a family of my own. I was divorced about 2 years ago, and this woman I thought was it for me, right? I had a beautiful stepdaughter. We were building towards something. So some days are still harder than others, but my mind is in a much better spot now. I am in a much better place in my life as well. So I have a much better perspective on things as well. So one big mind shift that I've had is that we really shouldn't be in a relationship like that if we're not good personally, right? So if we don't have our mind right, if we don't have our heart right, if we're not in line with God personally, then we shouldn't jump into a relationship, especially if that other person's not on the same page with you and not in line with God and is not right themselves, right? So my biggest thing now in life is I have to take care of me before I can help anybody else. So that's one big mind shift I've had, learning from multiple failed relationships and a divorce that was very hard on me and that put me in a dark place in my life for a long time after we got divorced. And it took me a while to come out of it. So it helped me learn more about myself. It helped me grow as an individual and learn to love myself again and learn to be alone again and be okay with being alone, because I was so been out of shape all the time in my younger years about having everyone around me and having everyone like me. It seeped into my adulthood and into my relationships. So yeah, I got used to having a family. And then when that was taken away from me, it did something to my life. I kind of felt like Job for a while. I felt like I lost everything. My family, I lost the job that I had. I was trying to rebuild We Are Hype, and that stopped very abruptly. I had started my own travel team and I wasn't able to do that anymore. Everything was just in disarray. But now I have my own home. I have a very good job. I am starting We Are Hype in a different manner. I have a much clearer vision. I'm in shape. I've been back in the gym. I'm getting myself in the place where I need to be so I can help others. and walk in my purpose, we have to take care of us before we can take care of anybody else. And as a man, speaking of manhood, we have to be able to provide for our family. We have to be able to lead our families. And as men, if we're not right here, if we're not right here, if we're not right here, physically, mentally, spiritually, all of the above, we cannot properly lead a family, so we have to be good on all those fronts. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, or you're going to constantly live in turmoil, be questioning yourself. So that's where I am in life. Is that a good
Great.
answer? Does that make sense?
It makes sense. Well, and just to piggyback, and biblically speaking, the man should be the head, and the wife is the weaker vessel, or the woman in the family is the weaker vessel. And so she's supposed to be able to look toward the man, and he's supposed to be able to give guidance from God. And so if he's not right in getting the guidance from God, he's not going to lead her the right way. And that's when you're going to have conflict, and it's going to be, not really chaos, but it's not going to be
It'll work for a while, but it's not going to be the easiest.
on the surface.
Right.
On the surface. Absolutely. It'll be on the surface.
And then, going back to what I said earlier, God has to be in the forefront of that relationship for it to see its full potential.
Absolutely.
There's no question about that either. Like, he has to be in the center of everything.
Yeah. Because what happens is it's a tug of war type situation.
Right. You're going to always be in conflict about something.
Something. Exactly. Correct. So, and that's not what he wants. And whenever it's an alignment, that's what I was saying. It's not an alignment. When it's an alignment, it's from him. You don't have a worry in the world, But what happens, I will say, and this is from experience and personally, when you have one person who is selfless and knows God and knows that he is everything, right? Then you have the other person who's kind of in the world or of the world, okay? The person that knows God is kind of trying to pour into the other person. However, you can't change anybody, period. Right? No matter how bad you want it for them, you can't do it for them.
Right.
So it starts to, then you're pulling from the cup of the person, you're draining the other person who's pouring into you, but you're not giving anything, because you're in the world. The world is pulling everything because only God can fill up the cup. Nothing in this earth can fill up your cup. It can't happen, period. So, you have an empty cup, you can't pour from an empty cup. And that's just it. If you're not filling it up from him, then you're consistently going to be lost. So
yeah, that's true.
That's great. So favorite Bible verse, tell me that.
Probably Isaiah 40:31. And that's one of my favorites. That kind of stems back to a big turning point in my life. So I was at Trinity Baptist College, Eagle. That's a small Christian school here in Jacksonville, Florida. It's growing, actually. It's getting bigger, but I wasn't able to play basketball until I was 29 years old in college, okay? So that was our verse because it states, "But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary, and they will walk and they will not be faint." So that in itself is, everything about enduring and resilience and trusting in God to see us through to the end. So that verse, I've known that verse, my whole life, right? But when I went to Trinity Baptist College, that just stuck with me. God says, hide the word in your heart and it will always be there, right? So that's one thing that's always stuck with me because that just speaks to my life, So there's many, many verses, but that's a good one.
When you feel.
Yeah.
So you feel them all, but that
exactly.
one.
Yes, that one's just got a special place in my heart.
Absolutely. Tell me, midnight workout or early morning grind?
Definitely a midnight workout. I am not a morning guy. I will be one if I have to be one, but especially because of my work schedule, I'm typically going to the gym at night. I've been in the gym at midnight recently a few times.
So then definitely midnight workout.
For sure.
All right. So shoes, clean Jordans or slides for comfort? Slides. Slides.
I got a closet with some J's in there. Of course, I love me some Jordans, but for the most part, I'm only wearing them for this much of the time. On the way to the event, I got my slides on. As soon as I get in my car, my slides on. Around the house or just chilling, slides all day.
Okay, tell me the best pre-game or post workout meals?
So I recently just got put on to crack bowls. Shout out to QuestFit. That's a combination of some Greek yogurt. I use almond butter, and I love bananas in there with some granola and some organic honey. You know, you can mix it up how you choose, but they're fire. So pre-workout or post-workout, I don't care. I love them.
Tell me, what's one thing that you want every young person listening to you tonight, what do you want them to know?
So they can do anything that they want. Don't feel like what you've done in your past will deter you from that. Our mistakes don't define us. Our past doesn't define us. Unless you do something that will get you put away for life, which I pray you don't, we usually can come back from our mistakes, and we live to fight another day. So just keep moving forward, lean into God, and just know that you can do whatever you truly want. It's cliche, but you really can do whatever you put your mind to and you make a solid effort towards. And if it doesn't work out, who cares? I've failed so many times, just keep going and try something different. If you try something and it doesn't work out, you might not be meant for that thing, but that's the reason why you try it, to find out. So just don't give up on your dreams.
Great. How can people support We Are Hype?
We're working on that. So the website is in development. We're rebranding. So we're actually changing a few things. We're updating our operation. And like I said, we've partnered with a couple people. Hopefully we can partner with somebody else here in just a second. But we're going to be having some events soon. So stay tuned. I'll be posting updates about the website and links on how to donate. The website will be wearehypeinc.org. You can get in touch with me at wearehypeinc_ at _coach_Drew_ and make sure you follow us at those two Instagrams, but also follow at Beneath the Hype Podcast as well. There's email and contact information, so definitely connect with us and be on the lookout for updates on the website and future events.
Great. Well, this was amazing. And I thank you so much for allowing me to ask you some questions and get to know who you are.
Thank you so much, Angel. I appreciate you. And I bet you guys have been wondering who this lovely lady is asking me these questions. This is Angel Samuel. She's actually the founder and owner of Beyond Healthcare and Wellness. She's a dedicated nurse practitioner with 19 years of nursing experience, 8 of those as a provider on the front lines of healing as a nurse. She's a powerhouse mother of 3, 2 sons and 1 beautiful daughter, someone who truly understands what it means to balance faith, family, and service. She was preparing to launch a podcast of her own where she'll be speaking life into topics that matter, from holistic health and wellness to motherhood, mental health, healing, and finding your voice. Stay connected with her journey, because her voice is one the world needs to hear. So thank you so much for the wisdom, the authenticity, and the heart that you brought to this episode. I appreciate you, and you guys stay tuned for part 2 of episode 1, where we're going to talk about Angel and what she has to come with her podcast, and we're going to tell a little bit of her story. But thank you guys so much for listening, and we hope that you come back for more. Y'all have a good night. That's it for today's episode of Beneath the Hype. I pray something you heard helped shift your mindset, challenge your spirit, and give you the extra push you need to keep going. If it spoke to you, share it with someone who needs it. Make sure to follow the show and stay connected with us on Instagram. Remember, your struggle is only part of your story. It's not where it ends. Let's keep this movement going, keep showing up, keep healing, and keep walking in purpose. This is Beneath the Hype, and we're just getting started.